Using actors, we will recreate crimes of dangerous fugitives, often at the locations where they took place.
I guess you could say I always knew there was a problem with Chris. I remember the first time meeting him, he introduced himself as Mr. X. And he asked me about if I was interested in watching Face Off every day with him. So I just thought he was a really weird guy. And later that night, he asked me if I knew a guy named Mr. X, who he said was after him. And I asked, "Isn't that your name?" And he said it was Mr. X. And then he said that he had to leave because of something called IBS, which he again blamed on Mr. X.
Thank you for watching Take Two Plus. This is, after all, the only podcast on the internet with a special announcement, and that is we are pleading not guilty to all charges. You will never catch us. So that is a special announcement to Zimmerman.
I'm pretty sure we've opened an episode that way before.
This is week 44. We are pleading innocent, and this week we are talking about what, fellas?
Missing scenes.
Every script in the first draft or first few drafts I've seen to end up not getting shot because they're ultimately redundant or unnecessary to the overall plot of the film.
But they did make the final script, though.
Not necessarily.
Well, I guess not if they didn't shoot it.
They didn't make the shooting script is what its situation would be. They wouldn't make
made some iteration of the script before it finally is what you see on the screen.
Yeah.
I guess
there are other situations where it could have made the shooting script and they started running out of money in the production and they ended up cutting it for budget reasons. Like,
but this is not this is not the deleted scenes you find on the DVD. This is stuff that the writers liked or talked about or actually wrote, but was never actually shot.
So one of the things that I kind of wish they chose to stick with was, I suppose, one of the 10 ways that Cage gets into a coma. Cryo-frozen by storage tanks. That would have been sweet. I'm imagining kind of like a Han Solo kind of thing where they have him and they have to
cast her in the carbon.
I mean, I'm picturing like Demolition Man.
If he gets cryo-frozen, how do you have to just defrost his face and take his face and leave the rest of his body frozen?
This must have been part of like, and we'll get into this a bit more, I guess, but like there was a more sci-fi version of the script that existed beforehand, and this must have been that. Like there must have been a version of the script where like they did get frozen at a certain time in the 90s, and then they kind of got rewoken up in the future. But then someone probably was like, "Didn't that just happen in Demolition Man?" Yeah, and then somebody was like, "Oh fuck yeah." That's exactly what happened in Demolition Man. Maybe we got to drop that. So I'm willing to bet that that's an artifact from a version of the script.
And you know what? It is a lot to ask of our police force to freeze themselves if it's necessary. I'm just so proud to be paying them to do that because it reminds me that I have a lot of power as a voter. Yeah. What about you guys? Does any of the list? Oh, and by the way, you'll have to check the list out on our Instagram page if you want to see the entire list.
I find this weird. This is what I find weird. It says that like at one point the writers talk about how an earlier draft of the film had Nicolas Cage seeking refuge at the house of Castor Troy's mother. Yeah. And so, I mean, even that in and of itself is weird because you have to imagine what Castor Troy's mother would have been like. It says, I guess, at some point the screenwriters, like they mentioned while they're talking about it, that they were hoping that they would cast Elizabeth Taylor for the role, and if not Elizabeth Taylor, then Jack Nicholson in drag. This is the screenwriter's idea, right? Just one second. Now, this is the screenwriter's idea. But what's confusing to me is that at another point they talk about Nicolas Cage and our good friend Alessandro Nivola, right? Yeah,
Huge
good
supporter.
friend, good friend. And how they ad-libbed the scene where they revealed that how they turned to crime in the past was because their father used to make them wear dresses. But the writers supposedly hated this little ad-lib, and yet they loved their own idea of Jack Nicholson in drag. So I don't know. I'm just confused about what they hated about Nicolas Cage's little addition there. But
I can imagine
it's
why
like drag on
that
their
was
terms.
our idea.
Drag on their terms.
That was our idea.
I can imagine why Elizabeth Taylor chose not to when the producers were saying, well, we're thinking about getting either you or Jack Nicholson in drag.
I like that there was a draft of the script that involved a big shootout in the Mirror Factory, but it was too expensive to shoot in the Mirror Factory.
The Mirror Factory.
Can you imagine the amount of mirrors that John would probably want to explode? Like once he heard he was going to be in a mirror factory, his mind probably went insane. And his assistant director handed in a budget, and they were probably like, "What? Like, what to do what?" But then, can you imagine how amazing it would have been? Because it probably would have been fucking amazing. Like having all these mirrors to blow up and to jump through and to shoot through.
It would look pretty
cool.
cool.
It'd be so difficult to film.
It would have been too.
Yeah.
That's probably part of it too. It probably would have been like how many days of shooting, because it would have been so hard to film every moment of it. Like they would have had to extend it so long.
Yeah.
But well, the famous one is like the Shanghai woman, right, or the woman from Shanghai with the Orson Welles.
Lady from Shanghai.
Lady from Shanghai.
Yeah,
sure, instead.
It would have been more of like an Enter the Dragon thing because of just like the martial arts and like the action and just like the final showdown, right? Of like these mirrors probably moving and someone's injured and.
Have you never been in a mirror factory? I don't know. Like I have no idea how they even work. Can you?
Your school didn't take you to the Mirror Factory?
No,
I
never did.
Mirror Factory.
It's just another one of those things in Face Off that where it's like a cool idea that they couldn't use, but they still used a piece of it and didn't explain it at all. Like there's no explanation for why there's 10 mirrors in the front entrance of that set, but it looks cool as fuck.
We have cross-dressing. We have mirrors.
The last thing we have to talk about is that that originally the writers wanted to somehow tie the sniper rifle back in from the beginning of the film to a later part in the film.
The sniper rifle.
So yeah, in the original script, they wanted the sniper rifle that Castor Troy uses to kill Sean Archer's son, and they wanted to bring it back so that Sean Archer would use it on Castor Troy to knock him out in this.
Because they have the harpoon, which is kind of looks like a tranquilizer gun.
That's true. Probably another thing that they thought would be.
Oh yeah,
I think I got you the tranquilizer gun, boss.
Honestly, yeah,
that's a harpoon, Mitzi.
This story doesn't really hold up because they also talk about how they wanted to turn the gun into a tranquilizer gun, which just doesn't work with sniper rifles, and how they were going to I just think that the writers were mixing up their own stories here, and this point doesn't even make sense really when you think about it. At no point do they ever even end up tranquilizing Castor Troy. Yeah, but I'm just wondering, how do they even get like what was the point of that? Like, these big movies, they end up because they start either going over on budget or shooting days. They end up scrapping scenes and shifting scenes and having to rewrite whole new scenes to bridge the gap. So
Also, it
these are
would
just
make
scenes that got
sense.
lost in the shuffle, probably.
Knowing John Woo, that would have been great to see a Mirror Factory shootout. I do kind of wish that Cage was cryogenically frozen, just kind of would have looked
Oh
to
my
see
God,
90s
could you
era
imagine?
special effects on that.
Is this because I feel like at that time in the 90s, that was kind of like our understanding of how things would be going in the future? Is that people would just freeze each other and then you would just emerge? But
Any
well,
last
thank
words?
you everyone for watching and or listening, or both. For those of us checking in, this was week 44 of our 52-week review on Face Off. Tune in next week.
Yeah, just we've stuck it out this long. You can't.
You owe
just give us
us.
another 7 weeks or whatever.
Give us another chance. Just 7 more chances.
The following question comes from the Associated Press. Mr. Putin, your relationship with the Take Two Plus podcast has been regarded internationally as being very friendly. However, do the recent events with Mr. X concern you at all with your future plans with the podcast?
First, let me say I think there's been a huge misunderstanding with Mr. X, Russia, and the Take Two Plus podcast. Children of Russia love the Take Two Plus podcast. They love Mr. X, they love all the shenanigans. Anyone who hurts Mr. X will be hurt in Russia, and the future consequences you don't even know, because you've never even seen them before in your own history. So, lay off.
Hey, that's pretty good.